Omarion Hampton could be in for a huge workload as a rookie. We'll tell you how you should be valuing him in your Dynasty leagues next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check out all of his great work over on SI. And on today's show, we are wrapping up our AFC previews going into training camp, talking about the AFC West, a very fun division, maybe the most competitive division in the NFL this year. So let's talk about some players that we are going to be buying, selling, and some sleepers to watch. Let's start with Omarion Hampton, who's been in the news quite a bit over the last week. Fabs, tell us why you're buying.
Well, two things I'm really looking forward to as it pertains to the Chargers. One is watching Omarion Hampton play in the NFL. Two, I want to see what these new jerseys are going to look like. Because I love jerseys.
Yes.
The Chargers have some of the best get-ups in the history of sports. Anyways, you guys all know the story about Hampton, coming out of North Carolina, a big bruising type back, rushed for over 1,500 yards, caught 29 passes out of the backfield in 2023. Last season, his rushing yardage was good for second among FBS running backs behind only Ashton Genty. If you look at some of his PFF grades, seventh best running back in FBS last year. He was tied for fifth as just a pure runner. Real big guy, second in yards after contact, fifth in missed tackles after a rush. He's third in rushes at 10 plus yards. Everything screams, Marcus, that he's going to be a fantasy football superstar. And also, you got to think about this. He's a good pass blocker, and he's a good receiver as well. He was in the top 20 in both receiving and pass blocking grades last year over at PFF. So he's got the tools to be a three-down back. And then you put him in Greg Roman's offense. And Greg Roman, if nothing else, has historically been very running back friendly from a fantasy perspective. If you want to go back to his time in San Francisco, Frank Gore had a top 10 season when he was running the football under Roman's watch. LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo had an RB4 finish. Mark Ingram had an RB11 finish. And also think about this. Like last year, we were not talking like that much at all. We were talking about Kamani Vidal. How stupid are we? J.K. Dobbins was the RB24 and he missed 3 games. He averaged almost 15 points per game. And so when you put a Hampton into this mix, now Najee Harris being there kind of screws it up maybe this year. Maybe. And hopefully Najee's okay after the whole fireworks incident. But when I saw that the Chargers signed Najee, I loved the move because he's a perfect fit for what they want to do. Omarion Hampton's better. He's better, and he's younger, and he's fresher, and he's more powerful. I can't tell you how much I love this kid, and I really feel like he's going to be a fantasy football superstar for a long time. Now, if things change, hopefully Jim Harbaugh and Roman are going to be there for a while in Hollywood. But as long as he's got those guys at the helm, he is going to be the workhorse. You don't draft a running back in this day and age in round 1 and don't turn him into a workhorse sooner rather than later. So if you can get Omarion Hampton in your drafts, and whether it's startup or rookie, go get him. And if you can't, I would certainly look to potentially deal for him because I want him. Like he like a lot of people like, I want Travis Hunter, and I'm kind of like that too, even though there's a lot of risk involved with him because of the cornerback wide receiver situation. I want Omarion Hampton on my dynasty team. I want Omarion Hampton on my redraft team. I just want Omarion Hampton on my squad.
Yeah, incredibly productive over the last 2 years. 1,500 rushing yards. 1,500 rushing yards in 2023. He went over 2,000 total rushing yards or total yards in 2024. Just incredibly productive. Scores touchdowns. He's everything you want in a fantasy running back. I think the only question I have is, Fabs, is what are you willing to pay to get him? Because he's already incredibly expensive. He's RB6 in the latest batch of ADP from Dynasty League Football. Overall, he's 23rd ranked player. Some recent trades on Dynasty League Football include AJ Brown in pick 107, Omarion Hampton in pick 104. 104 and Jaden Reed for Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton for Jaywan Jennings, a 2026 first rounder, a 2026 second rounder, and a 2027 first rounder.
That's
another one. Omarion Hampton and Emeka Buke for Christian McCaffrey, Lad McConkey, and a 2026 first round pick. It's really expensive to go get him. Yeah, it's really expensive to go out and get him right now.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, Lamborghinis are expensive too. But when you get in there and drive them, these are fun. I wouldn't know because I can't drive one of those things. I can't maybe afford, the little thing with the stick shift. Anyways, hey, go out and get your guy. Now, listen, don't get crazy, but I would definitely give up. Let's say this: if I had Christian McCaffrey, I would give you Christian McCaffrey and probably a first or a second next year to get Omarion Hampton. That's how much I love this kid, because I feel like this is the beginning of something great in Los Angeles with this running back. They've had some great running backs over the years, right? I mean, obviously none more than LaDainian Tomlinson, but this could be the next great one. And so while I'm not giving up 3 1s or nothing insane like that, you could probably pick my pocket for a little bit more in a deal for Omarion Hampton.
So I agree with you. I was just trying to express how expensive he is right now. But I'm willing to pay that price because I think he is in a fantastic situation. He's with one of the best offensive lines in the league. He's with a quarterback that throws the ball deep, and that matters because it's going to open up the run game underneath. And he's with a coaching staff that loves to run the football. Now, the only problem that I have when you're talking about the running backs that are ranked ahead of him, like Bijan Robinson, Ashton Genty, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think those are just better football players. Now, I do think the situation is as good as any of those guys, maybe outside of Gibbs. But when I'm looking at like Saquon Barkley and Devon Achane, I kind of would just rather have Hampton. So I'm willing to pay that price to go out and get Omarion Hampton. He's 22. The value is not going to go down right away. It's going to go down 2-3 years from now. But like we've seen someone with Bijan Robinson, he's not finished as the RB1. He's been very, very good, but maybe not elite. And yet he's still the RB1 in dynasty leagues right now. I just don't see any way that this value goes down. And I think with the Najee Harris injury to his eye, all that's going to do is give Hampton more opportunities in training camp to show that he's ready for a big time workload. And yeah, maybe it's still a 60-40 split, but this backfield is going to have enough touches to make it work.
You mentioned Saquon too. I mean, if somebody offered me Saquon straight up for Omarion Hampton, I'm doing it all day long and twice on Sunday. Hell, I may even give a little bit extra, because you guys all know I am worried about Saquon Barkley and the regression monster and all of the things and all of the trends that he has going against him in 2025. And I mean, listen, how many more good years does he have left? You have to think about that. Now, if I'm on a team that I think can win a championship like this year, then maybe I'm not going to trade Saquon Barkley and do that deal. But
hold on. Are you convinced that Barkley outscores Hampton this year? Because I'm not.
I mean, listen. I look at my rankings. I mean, I have Barkley ranked higher than Hampton, so I think that he's going to be better, right? So you have the proof right there, so you can't go back and say it. Nothing would surprise me, Marcus. Nothing would surprise me. I mean, geez Louise, Bucky Irving last year. Nothing would surprise me, because that's the NFL, the unpredictability of the NFL. So. And I can give you a million examples of that. I remember I brought up Sam Congato. So just weird stuff happens.
Jonas Gray.
So in Dynasty, you're looking at what your roster has and what you think you can do and accomplish, this year. Team like my Yankees, who finished off the damn season. The first half they got beat 2 games by the Cubs. They stink. Everyone's freaking hurt, right? The Yankees are going to give away youth because they want to go and get a third baseman. They want to go and get a starting pitcher or some relievers because they want to win now, because they feel like their roster is ready to win now. Went to the World Series last year, embarrassed me and embarrassed Yankees fans. Aaron Boone, I'm not a big fan of. That's neither here nor there. But if you're in that same situation in Dynasty, well, you may want to keep Barkley because you think you can go out and win that championship. in that case, you may want to trade for like a Tyreek Hill, who I don't love, because you're trying to get the pieces in place to win now. But other than that, I mean, Omarion Hampton is a better option than Saquon Barkley in almost every scenario in Dynasty.
Just usually with these elite running backs, they end up performing better earlier than you would expect, right? And when you're in an ideal situation like this, I want to be in on Omarion Hampton. So if I have to trade Saquon Barkley to go out and get him, I'm doing it, even if I'm in a win now window, because I just won't be surprised if we get to week 8 and Hampton's getting 21 carries a game. And yeah, maybe Barkley's a little bit more effective and maybe he's a little bit more flashy, but this is an offense that wants to run the ball. So we're all in on Omarion Hampton. The price tag's high, but you're right. Elite players cost a lot to go out and get. Go get Hampton. All right, let's talk about some players that we are selling from the AFC West, including one certain elite quarterback. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money just felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or you're planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. My family and we've been using Monarch Money for about 7 or 8 months now, and it's unbelievable how much money we've been able to save after just cutting back on coffee runs and just stupid stuff that we are spending money on. Now Monarch Money is helping us budget better, and we're actually building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Let's talk about some players we are selling from the AFC West going into the season. And listen, I'm giving you the floor. Tell me why you're selling Patrick Mahomes.
2 words, dad bod. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I did see that. Yeah.
Because listen, I don't, whatever. He's in better shape than I am. That's for sure. So what am I going to say? But look at the drop in production that Mahomes has suffered over the last couple of years. In 2022, Marcus, he was the best quarterback on the planet and in fantasy football in any stratosphere. He scored 417 points. He averaged 24.5 points per game. And then something happened over the last couple of years. 2023, 280 points, 17.5 points per game. Good, but not elite. And then last year, 283 points, 17.7 points per game. It's good, but it's not elite. And his passing yards have dropped significantly in each of the last 3 years. And last season, he had a career low 3,928 passing yards. Now, he didn't play a full season. We know that, but it was only one game that he missed. And there's a couple of things that worry me about Mahomes long term. And I think you should start to be already worried because of the decline in production. Travis Kelce has been the biggest target for Patrick Mahomes, outside of obviously Tyreek Hill when he was there, in Mahomes' career. And Travis Kelce is not long for playing in the NFL, in my opinion. Where he's 35, 36 years old. Of course, I'll make the joke. He's got Taylor Swift. Why do I want to play football and get my butt kicked every friggin' Sunday when I could be out at these extravagant places with Taylor Swift? So he may have one more year left. Okay, let's look at Mahomes and Kelce. Cumulatively, 954 targets have gone from Mahomes to Kelce. Through last year, Kelce seen 464 targets on 316 completions from Mahomes. Mahomes throws to him a lot. Yeah, look at the percentages, okay? Roughly 16% of Mahomes' pass attempts go to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce may or may not be there after 2025, and I would guess he probably won't be, especially if they go out and win a Super Bowl. Maybe you're right off into the sunset like John Elway. But Kelce is still a very highly targeted player. He's averaging 9 targets a game over the last 5 years. And so if you remove that aspect, and listen, I like Xavier Worthy. I like Rashee Rice, although Rashee Rice could be looking at suspension in the face in 2026. Behind them, there's not much. We like Noah Gray. We talked about that. You ain't going to replace Travis Kelce. And oh, by the way, Andy Reid is, he's getting close to 70 years old. So maybe he's the guy who's going to coach, as long as he possibly can. I mean, who knows? But there's just some question marks about whether or not these last two seasons are what Mahomes is now. And then if Kelce goes bye-bye, what does Mahomes become? Does he ever get back to being even a 350 point per season quarterback? I don't know if that's possible. And now he's still got Mahomes value, the name value. You could still get a pretty good load in terms of a trade in exchange for Patrick Mahomes. And so I'm thinking if somebody offers me a good deal, I wouldn't worry about, not having Patrick Mahomes on my fantasy team, because I can't tell you how many times in the last 2 years I've said, God, Mahomes again, not a good game. Like, I don't want 16 or 17 points from Patrick Mahomes. I want 24. And you don't get that anymore. And if Kelce's gone, what does Mahomes become? Is he Troy Aikman? Is he a really good quarterback who wins Super Bowls and gets to Super Bowls, but isn't really a great fantasy option anymore? And listen, right now, he's not a great fantasy option anymore. He is a mid to low QB1 who has dropped 6 to 7 points per game from his average just a couple of years ago. So, and listen, I mean, I'll trade away a big name, but you got to get a little booty, a little Pirates booty in return. Of course, you got to get a little, some good stuff in return. But I would not be adverse to trading Patrick Mahomes right now. I would not, because I don't know what his future looks like. Maybe this is just what he is, Marcus. Maybe this is what he is now. He's a 17 or 18 point per game quarterback who's no longer elite, who's inconsistent. And then if you remove Kelce from the equation, what do you have?
I just think these ebbs and flows happen with the elite quarterbacks. And when I mean elite, I'm talking about like all-time great quarterbacks. Like, let me give you an example. Peyton Manning in 2004, that's the year he threw 49 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4,500 passing yards, averaged 22.5 points per game that year. The next year, he scored 120 fewer points, right? So his average dropped down to 15.1. And then it's back up to 19.3, and then it's down to 17. And then it was a couple of years of 17. Then he goes to Denver and he has that massive season where he has, he throws for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. I think this is just kind of what happens with these quarterbacks, right? It just depends on the weapons. It depends on the offensive line. I'm betting on the talent here, and I'm betting on Andy Reid to figure this out. And honestly, I think my biggest thing is I think the division is going to be a lot better this year than it's been in previous years, right? The Broncos, I think we both think are going to be a playoff team. The Chargers are probably going to be a playoff team. I just don't know if they're going to be able to win the same amount of games the way they won last year, where it's 20-17 and we're winning on a defensive touchdown or a missed field goal at the end. I think they're going to have to open up the offense a little bit. And I think long-term, I love the pairing of Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. And in fact, I get the concerns about Travis Kelce. As a Patrick Mahomes dynasty manager, I kind of want Travis Kelce to get out of the way and get out of this offense because he makes this offense incredibly slow. And that's the number one takeaway you saw from the second half of the year is when he's getting that many targets, this offense just isn't overly dynamic. And maybe taking him out of the equation and using more receivers and putting faster guys on the field will help Patrick Mahomes become more dynamic. And the last thing I wanted to say is there's value in having the quarterbacks that we know are going to stick around and be starters for the next 7 or 8 years. There's only a handful of those guys right now in the league. And most of them are being drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes right now. And yeah, QB6 is expensive. But again, that's where you've got to pay up for these guys that are going to be starting every single year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we can agree to disagree here. In the Manning, example, he did bounce back a year after a season where we kind of thought regression would come. And that's been 2 years now with Mahomes. It's been 2 years. And maybe the Chiefs are just a better team because the Chiefs don't give a rat's patootie about our fantasy football teams or fantasy points. They care about winning. They've been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years when Patrick Mahomes has been an okay QB1, not
Do you
great, not
think,
elite.
Fabs,
They
do you
paid-
think do you think there's going to be some, I don't want to say revenge because that's the wrong word, but kind of everybody's been talking about how great Josh Allen is and how great Lamar Jackson is. There's just part of me that thinks that this is going to be the year where Mahomes kind of reminds everybody that he's the best guy in the league.
But I think people still think that from a real football perspective because Josh Allen can't get past Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I'm saying more
can't get past
statistically,
him.
right? Because we saw this ESPN survey that came out earlier this week, and Mahomes a year ago got 100% of the first place votes. That wasn't the case this year. Like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, according to NFL decision makers and coaches, some coaches believe that he's just a better player than Mahomes at this point. I just believe that there's going to be something in Mahomes where he's going to want to have his version of like Tom Brady's 50 touchdown season where it's like, hey, I'm still the best guy in the league, and I'm going to show you why.
I mean, listen, it's possible, but this is where like real football and fantasy football sort of, blur one another. If the Chiefs, if Andy Reid had his way and somebody said, hey, you know what, Mahomes is going to throw for 3,800 yards and 26 touchdowns, you're going to go back to the Super Bowl. Would you take it now? Of course you would. They've been the team that's played better defense over the last couple of years, under Steve Spagnuolo, and they haven't had to be this explosive offense to win games. They just have not. And again, there's been times during the last couple of years where you look at Mahomes, and you're like, well, that wasn't very Mahomesian of him. So again, listen, he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game. There's no question about that. None. But 2 straight years with, based on his high standards, kind of modest numbers.
Yeah.
With the prospect, and I disagree. I mean, having Kelsey, you're targeting him over 100 times every single year, well over. So obviously that's a big part of that game with Mahomes. Whether or not it slows down the offense or not, it's going to be impossible to replace him. I just feel like this might be what Mahomes is now for the rest of his career. And honestly, at the end of the day, if he's a 4,000-yard passer with, 28, 29 touchdowns every year for the next few years, and then the cliff starts to come, his numbers are still going to be among the best in the history of the National Football League. He's, we know he's had one of the greatest, if not the greatest season from a statistical standpoint among quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. A lot of that stuff's been accomplished. I think now Mahomes is more about getting to championships, win championships, rather than having to, throw for 5,000 yards. Mahomes doesn't seem like a guy who gives much care to or thought to, having big statistical seasons. He's all about winning championships.
Yep. All right, let's talk about some sleepers from the AFC West. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We want to let you know that the Locked On NFL Top 100 is already out on your podcast feeds. Go check it out on the Locked On Sports Today podcast or on the YouTube channel. This was voted on by the Locked On NFL host. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some sleepers from the AFC West. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Marvin Mims Jr., and I know you like him too. I'm a fan as well. He's a wide receiver 65 right now. His ADP's in the 150s. And, last season, the first, 10 games, he was just irrelevant. I mean, he was waiver wire fodder. And then all of a sudden, Sean Payton decided he was going to use Mims a little bit more. And over the final 7 games, 4.7 targets, 15.5 points per game. Pretty good. He saw more than 5 targets just one time in those games, which is a little concerning. But he had more than 20 yards per catch in 3 of those contests. He is a home run hitter. He is a big playmaker. And also, he's versatile. If you look at where he lined up from weeks 11 to 18, he was on the perimeter 41% of the time. He was in the slot about 39% of the time. He also can line up in the backfield. You can run jet sweeps with him. And, besides Courtland Sutton, who do the Broncos have at wide receiver who we know is locked in to any sort of role? Nobody. I mean, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, nobody. So I think we can both agree that Sutton and Evan Ingram are going to lead this team in targets this upcoming season. But Marvin Mims doesn't need a lot of targets to be productive because of the ways the Broncos are going to utilize him and because of his skill set. So the fact that this kid is 23 and not going until very late in drafts, or will not cost you very much at all in a potential trade, I think Marvin Mims Jr. is someone that you can, go out and grab and take a shot on.
I love it. I think this is one of these type of guys that you want to stash at the bottom of your roster because he's only 23. He's been a all-pro selection as a kick and punt returner. And that matters, right? Because we have this history of these guys who perform well on special teams, ultimately getting more shots on offense, whether it's Antonio Brown, who I think his first career touch was a kick return touchdown. Wes Welker was somebody, Julian Edelman. Like a lot of these guys start out on special teams before they get more work on offense. I do think that matters. I love Marvin Mims. He's the only guy in this offense that has the speed to make plays down the field. And he's 23. And we saw it like in the second half of last year, he was averaging over 60 yards from scrimmage. I don't know if it's going to creep up to 70 yards. And honestly, it doesn't have to. If he's averaging 60 yards per game through the course of a season, well, you're looking at a 1,000-yard receiver, and that's enough to be a weekly flex play.
And 1,000 yards is not hard to accomplish these days, especially when you have 17 games on the slate. And, a lot of times too, you can find these like sleeper types just by looking at what a player did sort of like down the stretch in the previous season. Maybe overall the body of work was not great, but late in the season, if something clicked and there wasn't a change in terms of the coach or the offensive coordinator, or the quarterback, the personnel, that kind of thing, that's a player that you're like, all right, I got to keep my eye on him. And Marvin Mims Jr. was one of those players for me at the end of last season.
All right, I got two. The first one is
wait.
I've got two.
Utah. Get me two.
No.
What movie?
I don't know.
Come on, Point Break. Come on, man.
All right.
Harrison would be very disappointed.
That's true.
Right now.
All right. Do you know how many receivers at the NFL Combine who were over 200 pounds, over 6'4", and ran a 4.30 or faster? Do you know how many we've had in NFL history?
I'm guessing not many.
One.
Yeah.
Donte Thornton Jr. with the Las Vegas Raiders. He is, by all reports, he's been awesome in training camp, in OTAs and mini camps, and he's got a real chance to win one of the outside receiver jobs. Pete Carroll says he's going to play a lot as a rookie, and I was wondering, I wonder who Pete compares him to. He compares him to DK Metcalf, coming out of Ole Miss, who was 6'4", ran in the low 4.3s, and was 220 pounds. Not a super developed route runner, not going to be running a bunch of, option routes and all that kind of stuff. His goal is to run deep, catch the ball. And that's what he did incredibly well at Tennessee. He averaged over 20 yards per catch. I just think that this offense with Geno Smith, who's pretty good at throwing the ball down the field, you've got some underneath weapons with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Donte Thornton is the type of guy that I want to have on my team because if he hits, we're talking about him hitting in a big way.
Definitely agree with you there. I still have Jack Besh ranked ahead of him in terms of Dynasty, but that doesn't matter because it's not like I have Besh ranked superiorly high. I mean, this is a kid who is either a free spot basically for you in terms of a draft or real cheap in a trade. Maybe a throw in a trade.
Wide receiver 76 right now.
The reports have been very good and very positive. I mean, obviously, listen, it's minicamp, but you'd rather hear that than, this guy looks like, garbage. So when there's buzz around a player, because we are who we are in fantasy football, we take note and we'll take a look at it. And sometimes it'll hit and sometimes it won't, but it's worth taking a shot on it just in case because the price is not high.
One more, just really quickly, Brashard Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a guy that was a wide receiver for the first part of his career. He transfers to SMU, is awesome as a running back. He's one of the big reasons why SMU ended up making the college football playoffs. Runs a 4.39 at the NFL Combine. He's going to be a passing back for the Chiefs. And honestly, he reminds me a lot of Jerick McKinnon, who had a lot of success in Kansas City, but he's a much better runner of the football. With this backfield, with Isaiah Pacheco in the final year of his deal, Kareem Hunt, who's at the very tail end of his career, Elijah Mitchell, who can't stay healthy, it's not hard to squint and see Brashard Smith getting on the field as a rookie. And again, he's basically free in your drafts right now. Another guy that I want on my roster.
That's a good one too. That Kansas City backfield is going to be one to watch because maybe just Pacheco just wasn't right because Pacheco came out of the gates last season. I mean, he was good.
Really good.
And then he got hurt, with the leg injury. And then down the stretch, I mean, he just couldn't get his job back. And for whatever reason that happened, I'm not sure. But Pacheco is in Dynasty and redrafts. Pacheco is one of the most difficult players to predict because what the Chiefs did in the offseason, not only bringing back Kareem Hunt, but drafting Smith and signing Mitchell. Yeah, again, one of those Arsenio Hall type of moments. What's going on over there with that offense? So Pacheco is either going to be a really good draft bargain, and you're going to be like, damn, I'm glad I grabbed him as like my running back 3-4 type, or a guy who's going to be sitting on your bench because you never know which Chiefs running back to start on a weekly basis.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Next week, we'll do our NFC previews going into training camp, so be on the lookout for that. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.